Good evening, welcome to the latest live edition of Last Bell Boxing. We'll try and keep it away from the upcoming football tournament. Let's keep it on boxing. So tonight we're joined by Orkan. Good evening, Orkan.
Good evening, Carl. Thank you.
No problem. Joined by Harrison. Good evening, Harrison.
Evening, Carl. You all right? Nice to be back up.
Living the dream. And then in some dodgy hotel somewhere, we're joined by Ander. So if the Wi-Fi drops out, it's not his pound shop Wi-Fi, which it normally is. It's whatever hotel chain it is. Good evening, Ander.
It's a different pound shop Wi-Fi in the middle of the darkest depths of Wales, mate.
Well, let's see if we can try and get through a show without you dropping out. You know, that's what we've got to strive for. So,
yeah, fingers crossed, eh?
A lot of boxing happening at the minute. Some good cards this weekend. A lot of rumours flying around at the minute about boxing leagues and, you know, Saudi taking over the world, which we'll come on to. Some great fights where fighters have stepped in lastminute.com and shown some big kahunas. So, great show tonight. We're going to jump on to the first topic, which is the upcoming Selhurst card. So, this is where I hand it over to Andy and pray that his Wi-Fi holds out. Over to you, Andy.
Yeah, let's hope it does hold out, mate. Yeah, interesting show this is going to be. We have got some good topics coming up. Right, straight into the Boxer show from Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace. First and foremost, I'm a little bit surprised that Chris Smith has agreed to this, being at Crystal Palace. He's the one that holds all the cards at the end of the day. He's the champion. And I don't see it making any more money at Palace than it would have done down in Billum Smith's neck of the woods, to be honest, other than Boxer wanting a different venue. That's the only reason I can think it's there. I'm sure Riakpur, isn't the A side when it comes down to Billum Smith holding the title. So let's start with a little bit further down the card. I don't know how far you want to go down the card, Carl.
Wherever you want.
I've had a quick chance to look at a bit of the presser today. So I think we'll go with Ben Whittaker because his opponent's not a shy fella, is there?
Go on, let's see you pronounce it. Come on, waiting for this one.
Okay, Ezra Erenika.
Yeah, you're definitely watching the press. So learning off Johnny.
Absolutely, mate. That's the only reason I watched it. Okay, this Ezra Erenika, from right in thinking, he came out at the last show Ben Whittaker was on. Hijacked the press conference a little bit, didn't he? And put it on him to get this fight made. So he better show up, is all I can say, because otherwise he's going to embarrass himself. Ben Whittaker, I don't think he's taking it too kindly. We might see a little bit of spite from Ben Whittaker in this fight, rather than the clowning about. We've been through that a million and one times, so I don't really want to cover that again. What I do want to talk about, though, Harrison, is this is obviously for the vacant IBF International light heavyweight title. So it'd be the first belt for Whittaker as a pro. What are you laughing at?
Just make sure it's on the poster.
What does that even mean? Anyway.
Well, it means he gets a ranking, don't it? That's what it means.
Yeah.
It means he gets a ranking, and he needs one because, let's have it right, mate. He hasn't been tested yet, and he's 7-0. He's way too good for the level of opposition he's currently fighting. So let's see if Ezra gives him a few more rounds and something to think about. Over to you, Harrison. What's your first initial thoughts on Ezra Erenika?
I actually think this is a perfect fight for Ben Whittaker for a couple of reasons. The interesting thing is going to be the reception from the actual attendance and then the aftermath, because there's a lot of speculation this is the last fight for Ben Whittaker on his boxer contract. So if there's interest from others, which we know that there's going to be, it'll be interesting to see what he's think about, or if he's going to go to Matchroom, Queensbury, Top Rank, PBC, whoever it might be, or if he renews. The reason this is a good fight for him, though, at this is obviously we know he has to go through the whole stepping stones of getting to that high level of professional. Like you said there, it's for an IBF international ranking belt, which, of course, he needs to get into world title contention. this lad as an opponent has gotten under Whittaker's skin a little bit, and all we've seen so far is Whittaker just sort of humiliate his opponents and put everything onto them. It's nice to see something coming back at Whittaker a little bit. So he's almost looking in the mirror, I think, with this lad. And that's the type of opponent that he needs at this stage in his career. I don't know too much about his boxing ability. He's obviously coming off he's a big hitter from what we know, but what level he's fighting at, we'll find out on Saturday night. You'd expect Ben Whittaker to look good and be good here, but it's been a nice little bit of needleless for the build-up.
Carl, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this lad's had 10 knockouts, hasn't he? I think I remember reading. But it's all about the levels, isn't it? You know, Whittaker, I'm not so sure this kid's got under his skin. I think he'll make an example of him because he can't be having other people waltzing up to him at press conferences and trying to get a fight with him. So I think he'll make an example of him. I don't think he believes that this person deserves to be in the ring with him. He's not earned it. So I think he'll put an absolute masterclass on. I don't think he'll renew with Boxer. I don't think, I think he's got bigger fish to fry. I think Boxer is almost becoming a feeder promoter, if I'm being brutally honest. So I expect him to go to Matchroom like I predicted weeks and weeks ago. I think he fits in with that model quite well. But yeah, I think this guy's tailor-made for him. He's not going to have to go looking for him. And he can just get his shots off as and when he pleases, to be honest.
Håkan, do you see anything different to what the lads are saying?
Not much. I agree with all of you, and I'm not that familiar with Ezra. I haven't watched him before, so but I expect a good performance from Ben Whittaker, and I think he will stop Ezra in the later rounds.
All I will say is Ben Whittaker might not like the fact that this kid's come up to him in his last press conference and hijacked the situation and tried to put it on him. But according to Ben Shalom, every man and his dog has been ringing up for a fight with Ben Whittaker. They all want the piece because they can all see what it's going to bring for their careers. Even if they have a little bit of success against Ben Whittaker, it's going to skyrocket them. So this kid's took the bull by the horns and gone down to a press conference and says, "I'll fight you." And obviously it's embarrassed Ben a little bit, so that's why the fight's been made. So much respect to Ezra Erenika. I'm saying it because I can. Ezra Erenika. Much respect to him because you don't get many fighters going and doing this sort of thing. So I quite like it. I quite like the fact that he backs himself. I don't expect anything other than a Ben Whittaker win, by the way, guys, and I expect a stoppage. I think Ben Whittaker might punish him a little bit before he stops him, though. I think he might play with him a little bit because he's that skillful and that good that he can. He needs to be going in next time out, lads, with someone of the capabilities of Dan Aziz. That's the fight that should get made next. Because Dan Aziz is right up there. It's kind of European level, isn't he? I won't call him world level, but I'd say European level. And I think Ben Whittaker is right there now. So that fight, why not make that fight next?
It's a big. Sorry, I'll jump in here. It's way too big of a risk for boxers to take that fight. I'd love to see it. I think fan-wise, that's a fantastic fight. But Dan Aziz is a really dangerous fighter. He's only lost.
He's a big puncher.
He's a very solid fighter, and the worry is that if there's a long-term deal to be had here between Boxer and Whittaker, we'll see that in the next few months play out. They wouldn't risk that because Whittaker is their biggest star by a mile. He's the one who they're going to be putting. He's not going to go down the traditional domestic route with the Lonsdale belts and then onto the European stuff. He's going to be in world title fights before you know it. So they're going to be very cautious with him, which is going to be a shame to see as a fan. But you can understand why Boxer would, of course, do that.
I get that, mate. I get that. I do. I get what you're saying, and you're right. That is exactly what Boxer's going to do with him. But he's got to be tested.
Yes,
you can't have him. You can't have him fighting pushover European fights. Getting into the top 5 rankings, and then all of a sudden getting a world title shot, and not not having not he's not got the tools, but not having the experience against in a tough fight where someone's actually going to ask questions of you. He needs that. He needs that, and he needs it quickly.
Is it our draw parallels with Moses Atuma though, where once you get to that level, there's no turning back, is there? So you've got, that's one hell of a jump into it. The opposition is facing at the minute, and then jumping in with Dan Aziz. That's one hell of a jump.
It is a jump call, but how many times have you said fighters are taking way too long to get up to any sort of a level?
Yeah. I just think
if he's ready, he's ready. If he's ready, he's ready.
There's got to be someone in and around a few more levels up before he jumps in with Aziz. Because I think that's.
There probably is. There probably is. There's some very good talent in the light heavyweight division, but the problem you've got is you've got probably British level, and then you've got Dan Aziz. He can go and get European fights again. He can go get European fights against fighters we don't know that are very tough, that might last a few rounds, but they're not really going to ask him questions.
Shaken Peters, if he's available, would be a good step up.
Yeah. That's a good shout. But Shakan's coming to the end of his career.
Yeah.
So he's not the fighter he was, but maybe that's a good. Because he's not the fighter he was.
I agree with Orkan because he's going to ask him a few questions. He's going to ask him questions, isn't he? He's still good enough to ask him questions.
Yeah.
Yes, probably not a bad shout, to be fair. Okay, guys, swiftly moving on to what seems to be bubbling up to be really interesting. These guys, for whatever reason, are getting under each other's skin. Isaac Chamberlain and Jack Massey are fighting for the Commonwealth and European EBU European Cruiserweight, which is vacant, by the way. Very interesting, this. I'll give my opinion last, but I'll come to Håkan first. How do you see this fight playing out, Håkan?
First, I'm very happy for Jack Massey that he gets his big fight now. He has been waiting to get fights. He has been for a while now. I think it's going to be a very close fight. But I'm hoping Jack Massey can win this fight. I know he's been looking for a big fight and hasn't get it. But I think the fight is gonna be very close, and I will go for a points decision. Very close points decision for I say Jack Massey.
Carl, both fighters have only lost to world level fighters. Isaac Chamberlain lost to obviously Lawrence Okoli in that absolute stinker of a fight, and also Chris Billum-Smith. And Jack Massey has only lost to Richard Riakporhe at cruiserweight, and then that fight against Josie Parker when he should never have been at heavyweight. But you step up. Sometimes you've got to take the fights that you get. He's not a fighter that's in favour, is there? Let's have it right. And a fighter that probably brings a lot to the table and don't give a lot back. How do you see it going, mate?
So I think Isaac Chamberlain's going to win this because I think it's more important for Isaac Chamberlain to win this than it is Jack Massey in terms of career. I think Isaac Chamberlain's had a few goes on the merry-go-round, like you mentioned, come up short twice. And I think there's not much between these fighters, but I think Isaac Chamberlain is just the better fighter out of the two. I find Jack Massey a bit wooden and he fights a bit tall for me. So I think Isaac Chamberlain will be able to get to him eventually. Isaac Chamberlain's got a problem though, because I don't think he's good enough to beat the Riakporhes of this world and in that next level up. So I'm not sure what you do with him because I think he'll go on to maybe fight the winner of the main card before the year's out. Because I don't think Boxxer will be able to get the winner of Bill and Smith a world title fight. So I think that'll be a ticking over fight. But I think Isaac Chamberlain beats Jack Massey. I like Jack Massey, and he just wanted to get down to business today. But I think Chamberlain got under his skin, unfortunately, and I think he's going to come out swinging a bit, Massey. And I just think Chamberlain's good enough to beat him. I think Chamberlain might stop him late.
Harrison?
This feels really like the pinnacle for Isaac Chamberlain. If he was to win a European title and he never went on to win anything more than that, I don't think any of us would be too surprised. I do worry that there is, like Carl said, a skill issue with him. And it's a bit of a shame, really, because the cruiserweight division was so numb for so long. But now the Brits are at the best they've probably ever been. We've got Jaya Pataya, pound-for-pound champion, and loads of other really good names. I do think Isaac Chamberlain here is too good for Jack Massey. And I was at Massey's fight when he fought Joe Parker up here in Manchester. And I remember coming out of that thinking Joe Parker will never go on to win anything. But, oh, how wrong I was from that. But, yeah, Massey could just be a little bit negative. He's not the most exciting fighter to watch. Isaac Chamberlain, off the back of that Mikhail Lawal win, I think is really, really important for him, because that was one of those, that felt winner stays on at this level anyways. And I don't think Chamberlain's going to get many more golden opportunities to win a European title than he is on Saturday night, and the Commonwealth belt as well shouldn't be disgraced. So I think Isaac Chamberlain's just a little bit too skillful for him, but then I worry when he gets in there with a Billum Smith or Riakporhe, or whoever it may be in a couple of years' time, that he will just fall a bit on short, unfortunately.
I mean, Harrison, you're talking about the winner fight in Lyndon Arthur, aren't they, as well? The winner maybe.
Yeah, Lyndon Arthur's back this weekend as well. I don't know if he's fighting.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to pop down to that. I don't know if Lyndon Arthur's got much of a future at cruiserweight, but he was always a very solid light heavyweight. But if he can take himself with that weight up, then I think he's a good player domestically, yeah.
I'm going to book the trend, guys. I think this is Jack Massey's... This is Jack Massey's time to shine. I don't rate Isaac Chamberlain. I never have. He underperforms. He's got skill there, but he just don't use it. It could go either way. You know, there's an argument for what you're saying. I completely see it. But I actually think Jack Massey stops him, and I think he stops him mid-rounds. Okay, moving swiftly on, boys, to the main event. This is an absolute barnstormer of a fight, in my opinion. What I will say, though, is everyone harps back onto the first fight, and I did for a while. But we're talking 5 years ago. They're both completely different fighters. I think they were like 9-0 as professionals, both of them at the time. They fought, really real youngsters in the professional game then. And they've both moved on and learnt a lot. The question is, who's learnt the most and who's improved the most and who's moved on the most? If you look at who they fought, the argument would be that Chris Billum Smith fought the better opponents. He's obviously world champion, so he's achieved more. I've gone on record on numerous occasions to say that I think Richard Riakporhe is the best cruiserweight in Britain. And I'll stand by that. And I think he stops Chris Billum Smith. I really like Chris Billum Smith. He's a real gent. You don't see that often in boxing. He's a real gent, and I think he's worked wonders to get to the level that he has and win a world title. Harrison, what's your feelings?
It's always an exciting prospect for an all-British title fight, especially when the champion isn't the favourite, which we haven't seen too often in recent years. I'm very excited for this one on Saturday. This is a real good fight. It's keeping that trend of the last couple of months of boxing have just been special and magical. And it's great that where we feel like we might have been a bit rinsed domestically because everything's gone out to Saudi Arabia, to have this big night now in West London, really, really good main event. And like you said, that fight 5 years ago, scratch as many lines under it as you want. It doesn't really matter, unfortunately, at this stage. They're completely different fighters. Chris Billum Smith has gone on to be far more technically astute than he was in that first fight. Richard Riakporhe has had a bit of a stalled career, in my opinion. I feel like he should be in a much higher up position than he has at this stage. And that's not me having digs at Boxxer and previous connections, but I just feel like I can't believe this is only his time now to become a world champion. But I am with the and still camp. I do think Chris Billam-Smith has gone on, like you said, matured a little better in these 5 years and just learned a little bit more on the way as well. I just think his activity, the level that he's been in, that Lawrence Coley fight stands out really as like a sore thumb. That was massive. That win and the way he won as well, quite convincingly. That for me is the real stickler between these two. So I know it's not a popular opinion. I'm sure you three might probably disagree, but I think Chris Billam-Smith does enough. Don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight in the world. I know it's not selling it too well, but I think he's going to just box him a little bit too technically, be patient with him, take his moments and win 8-9 rounds and coast along quite nicely.
I actually think it's going to be a barnstormer, Harrison. I don't think Chris Billam-Smith, once Richard Riakporhe lands, Chris Billam-Smith won't be able to help himself, mate, and he'll start swinging. He reverts the type.
I hope you're right. I really do. I want every fight to be at that level that we've seen of Fury Usyk, and I want everything to be incredible. It's just my fear is that so much being on the line. He's the away fighter. There's going to be such a raucous atmosphere. Like Selhurst Park, like it would be on any London fight night, will be absolutely bouncing on Saturday night. It's going to have that old school feel to it. It's going to be nice to have a bit of Sweet Caroline back in an arena like that. So I hope I'm wrong. It's just for me, I think that Billam-Smith has such a good box in mind that if he keeps switched on and he keeps to his own game plan, that's what will sort of fizzle the fight out for me. But again, I really hope I'm wrong.
Carl?
Yeah, I've got on record as saying that I think Billam-Smith wouldn't win a world title at any other weight. I think Riakporhe will beat him quite comfortably, and I think it'll be an exciting fight. I just don't rate Billam-Smith. I don't see what everyone else sees. Flatters to deceive. You don't have to go looking for him. Let's be honest. Riakporhe's got more power than him. I just think Riakporhe's going to take this guy apart. I think he'll take him apart on Saturday, especially with the crowd behind him. I'm going for a stoppage round 10 on what will be nip and tuck for the first few rounds, but then I think Riakporhe takes over and walks him down.
Harrison? Sorry, Håkan?
Thank you. With the Masternak fight in my mind, when Chris Billam-Smith was pretty lucky in the end, how that fight finished. So I think he was way down on points against Masternak when when Masternak got injured and they have to quit. So I think Richard Riakporhe will win on a stoppage round 7, round 8.
Well, it looks like you're out on your own, Harrison.
Brilliant. I'll just boot myself off next week, folks, when he gets knocked out in a round.
Lads, this is that sort of a fight. I actually think Chris Billam-Smith's got more power than Cole perhaps lets on. So it's going to be interesting because whoever lands clean first makes a big dent in his opponent in this fight. Because I do think they both hit really, really hard.
He couldn't get a 49-year-old Masternak out of there.
Well, styles though, isn't it, Cole? Styles make fights. It's one of them. His best opportunities to try and stay out of the way of Riakporhe's power. So I understand where Harrison's coming from with his point of view and his opinion. I just don't think the problem is he does get hit a little bit too much. Chris Billam-Smith, he's got a really good chin, and I think he maybe relies on it a little bit too much. But he has improved massively. I just think Richard Riakporhe is a much better fighter than Billam-Smith, unfortunately. So I'm going stoppage, late rounds. I'm going to say, well, I can't say the same as Carl, so I'll say round 9.
I actually think the engine will play quite a significant factor in this as well. Richard Riakporhe hasn't gone 12 rounds in over 5 years now. I think the last time it was Jack Massey. I'm not 100% sure because he's been on this big KO spiel. I'm not for a second suggesting that he hasn't got that cardio that he once did. It's just a case that if it does get a bit sluggish and if it does go deep, Chris Billum-Smith's been a deeper and longer fighter, so I think that is something that's going to play into Billum-Smith's strengths as well. It's just something to note, really. But I can understand I can understand why people make Riakporhe the favourite for this. It's just that I think Billum-Smith's possibly being disrespected a little bit as well.
Yeah, you're probably right, mate. Yeah, granted. Carl, next topic.
Okay.
Been interesting, this. As you can imagine, Leonard Ellaby and the little contingent Marvin off as usual.
I mean, what's Ellaby ever done? What's Ellaby ever done in boxing? It's just a total knobhead, and it might. And YouTube might throw this video off that. I'm sorry, but I just don't know where he gets off. I don't even know what he actually does.
He's got a smile card. He's got a really good smile, and people just look at him and think he looks Mayweathery.
Yeah, I'm not.
Do you know what I don't get, guys? Do you know what I don't get is you have a press conference to try and drum up interest in a fight. That's the whole point of a press conference. You drum up interest in a fight to try and sell pay-per-view tickets, to try and sell seats, bums on seats in arenas, and you get the guy who's promoting the show bad Marvin and putting down Tank's opponent like it's a waste of time even turning up because you're no good. You're rubbish. What's the point you being here? Well, that's not going to build an interest in a fight, is it?
He needs to take a few lessons from Edward Earn about how to build an opponent up. If you
crazy.
Remember, that's the guy who had us all convinced Audley Harrison was going to beat David A. Now that guy.
Right. Okay. Harrison, take it away, mate. But, I mean, let's start with this, right? Does Tank Davis need to switch it up and move to a new promoter?
I don't think so. Tricky question, but at the same time, other than probably Canelo that's springing to immediate mind, and maybe AJ through the Sky and DAZN years, Tank is one of the longest standing pay-per-view stars in the entire of boxing now. I don't know the exact number, but I reckon this is probably his 8th or 9th pay-per-view with PBC, whether it be with Showtime, Fox, whatever it is, and now Amazon. You would only need to change up your promoter if it wasn't working for you personally. But because he's become the face of PBC, and there's an argument there that he's the face of boxing now, I don't feel like if you go over to Top Rank, then a whole lot's going to change. It's going to make you a bigger global superstar, if that makes sense. He's in a perfect camp, really, with PBC. He dictates who he fights, when he fights, where he fights. He's got a massive say over things now. So
the only thing I would say, Harrison, it isn't a very clever strategy to come out and start slagging Saudi off and Turkey al-Sheikh off. No. Maybe he didn't slag him off, but it was a bit negative, wasn't it?
He doesn't seem happy about the situation, and that's. I pointed out a couple of months ago about how the Americans are hesitant with the Saudi Arabian operations. At least Terence Crawford and this Matchroom sort of hybrid link thing has come together.
Well, Crawford's an ambassador now, remember? He's an ambassador for the Riyadh season, so I think he might have been convinced. I'm not sure what convinced him, Harrison.
I'll get him a card and stick him a tenner in it. I'm sure he needs it. But there's certain fighters and there's certain promotional banners that almost it's like Apple in the tech world. They refuse to adhere to other brands even existing, and that's what PBC is like here with the Saudi promotions. The PBC refuse to. If you ever look at the graphics or anything like that, they refuse to mention a Top Rank or a Matchroom fighter. They're in their own little bubble and world. And look, PBC shows are brilliant. They're really, really well put together, to be fair. But it's only up to Tank. But to answer your question, it's up to him, really. But I don't think there's any sense. He's still breaking pay-per-view records. He's deciding when he fights, where, how, who, everything. He's got such a monopoly over that company. I don't think there's sense to move, personally.
Okay. I'll change my angle of the question.
I'm not going to change it.
What a shit question.
No, I'm not saying you're going to change your opinion, but let me come at you a different way. The There's an argument that because of this PBC bubble, as you put it, that it makes it very difficult to make the best fights against the best opponents because PBC wants it all their own way. Now, Tank's making hand over fist money that they don't have to worry about Saudi money because of the amount of money he's making. I get all that. But at what point is enough money, and then do you go for legacy then? When do you go to fight the best and to prove you're the best?
Good question.
Because it doesn't look like they're going to do it anytime soon.
No, you're right. Look, he has got good names on his record as well. We're not saying that every other PBC fighter is not at his level. He's fought.
No, yeah, I agree.
LSC, Mario Barrios, Rolly Romero, Isaac Cruz's stock's gone up tenfold now. He's got a really strong CV, to be fair, Tank, and he's made all of them look ridiculously easy. But you are right. There is fights out there like Shakur Stevenson, Vasyl Lomachenko, William Zepeda. There's so many really good fights that you can make, or across a multitude of divisions as well. Yep. And eventually he is going to have to break out of that PBC bubble. It was a different era when Mayweather was fighting there because people would come over to PBC to fight, but we're seeing so much of a lock where you're never going to see a top-ranked fighter go over and fight on Amazon. It just doesn't happen. So you are right. It does have to happen at some stage, but I think right now, in the next couple of years, he's still only a young lad. He's probably only about 25, 26 old. So I wouldn't be too concerned immediately anyways.
Carl, break it down for me.
I don't necessarily agree with Harrison. I think he's in danger of being on the outside looking in if he's not careful with his Saudi approach. I think more and more fighters, especially if the global league takes place, which we're going to come on to, Tank is probably one of the faces of boxing, I agree. But I'm just frightened that, boxing won't leave him behind per se, but I just think Saudi's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the purses are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So what's a very good purse for Tank Davis at the minute will start getting dwarfed, and other fighters will be earning in and around that same amount when they're not as elite as Tank is, if that makes sense. So I think boxing is going to move to a place where he may have to go to Saudi Arabia to get his piece of the pie, if you will. So that's what I think he may have to do.
I'm not dismissing that he'll never go to Saudi Arabia, by the way. I'm sure he probably will go down that route. I just don't think it's an immediate issue. And as well, I think the big thing is obviously Crawford's having this fight in the States, and we know that this Wembley show with Josh is going to have some sort of Saudi integration in it, obviously. If Saudi Arabia start putting more and more shows on and getting the big venues over in America like the MGM and the T-Mobile, then that might be the way for him. It's a lot easier to see him fighting in America under a Saudi promotion than it is for him to fight in Saudi under a Saudi promotion as well.
I still suggest he needs to be careful with how he talks about the Saudi Arabian outfit, because Turkey Al Sheikh's not quick to pull the rug up, right?
Absolutely, agreed with that.
And then he's not left in limbo, because there'll always be a pound note on the table for him. But you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face when it comes to the purses that are going to be offered in Saudi Arabia. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's way too good to be left out of the picture.
Correct.
Like, way too talented. He will be in boxing for the next 10 years unless he retires early.
Yeah. So coming to the fight at the weekend, obviously Frank Martin's got a good record, but I think he's been well chosen. I think Tank gets to do what he wants to do with him, to be honest. Yeah, I can see Tank Davis stopping this guy fairly early. I'm going for round 6 stoppage. I think he'll be a Davis masterclass.
Håkan, does Frank Martin bring anything to the table that troubles Gervonta?
I don't think so. I agree with Carl. I think Tank will stop Martin pretty early, but I say round 5.
What was your prediction, Harrison? We never got that.
I'm going to hat-trick this up. I think that Gervonta Davis is far too good for Frank Martin. And Frank Martin actually a very good fighter, and he's talked really well actually in the build-up to this. He's promoted himself quite nicely. I think he'll be in some really good fights for the next few years, but this is Tank in Vegas, on his stage, on everything that he wants. This doesn't go longer than 3 rounds, and we're all in bed, hopefully quite early on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I echo that. Tank finishes this whenever he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Swiftly moving on, Carl. Right, you take the lead on this one then, mate.
No problem. So, rumours have been all over social media. But I mean, I must stress that nothing officially has been released by Turkey Al Sheikh or Saudi Arabia officials. But some very well respected boxing journalists are coming out and saying that Turkey Al Sheikh is planning a global boxing league, which will take a similar format to the UFC, and is considering buying out the major promotional companies to achieve this. But interestingly, boxers not named on that list of promotional companies. I'll let you work that one out in your own time. So, good or bad for boxing? Is this a case of be careful what you wish for? We would get the biggest fights like UFC do, and the zero becomes less and less. So, just generally, take your thoughts. I'll come to you first, Harrison.
Good or bad for boxing? Both. Because what we've cried out for years and years, and as the UFC has developed and gotten itself bigger and bigger, it's pushed itself away from Bellator and from other MMA companies, and it's created itself a monster brand where you know where the big fights are on, you know when McGregor, John Jones, etc. fighting, because they've created the model that way, and that would be something that boxing would benefit from. But, and then the two sides to look on the other way of that is people already know when there's big fights on anyways because of how well it's promoted. Nobody was going to miss Fury Usyk. It was on every billboard. It was on every advertisement, social media, streaming platform, you name it, DAZN and everybody else had a million ads going out for it. So that stage of things wouldn't change too much. The really bad thing too is we've seen with other sporting organizations how much it's damaged the lower levels then. And that cut off then from the elite that goes down to the grassroots and the white collar, and that's football and the Premier League and the Super League of a few years ago shot itself in the foot like it's never done before, where they tried to create a 14, 16-man league and it completely disbanded any relationship that fans and football fans had. And that will be a factor here, because what will happen is that's great for the small term making everything happen. But then for companies like Matchroom and Top Rank, who have next generation shows, and the PBC do as well, and they do them all very well, will become eliminated, is my worry. We're not going to have as many fighters, unless you come out of the Olympics and you're a superstar straight away, or you're an incredible amateur. I just worry that there's going to be such a massive divide from that top level of Fury, AJ, Fury, Usyk, whoever it might be, right down to your 4 p.m. undercards, where they don't exist anymore. So there's two sides to it. I like the idea, but it has to be formatted correctly. And the big problem is, how do you make it happen? Are you going to sit Al Heyman, Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, and Bob Arum in a room together and make them agree on something? No, because they haven't done that for the last 30, 40, 50 years, have they? So, like, as great as Turkey Al Sheikh is, he's not a wizard. He's not a genius. He can't make this happen overnight. I'd love to see it done, but it has to be done correctly. And I want...
He could buy them all, though. He could buy all the outfits.
If they'd agree to sales, yeah. But then the issue is you have to buy all of them. You can't just buy... Like, the big four in my eyes have always been Matchroom, Queensberry, Top Rank, and PPC. You can't just buy 3 of them and then leave Queensberry doing their own thing. Because... Well, Queensberry would probably be the ones that would be most up for it. But just in general...
Golden Boy.
Golden Boy, yeah, exactly. You can't leave... Can you leave Golden Boy out? Probably not, no. They've got Zurdo Ramirez. They've got Ryan.
Not if you want the Mexican market, you can't.
Well, exactly.
It changes the whole ecosystem, doesn't it? Because let me throw another angle at you then, Everson. So you're sat there, you're CEO of Top Rank. The other 3 supposed big boys have sold out to Turkey Al Sheikh. You're going to go as well.
Yeah.
There's no market left there.
Yeah. But then. Again with the football situation, you'll know this. So the Premier League compared to the EFL now is slowly drifting further and further away. Like this season with the 3 teams that went straight back down, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened again, because the money that's being funneled into the top echelon of English football now isn't going back down. If that keeps happening again in boxing, then the way it trickles down is going to be such an economical problem. And it will just break the sport before it fixes it. People are thinking excitingly. In the first aftermath, we're going to get to see every big fight, and it's going to be incredible. Tank's going to fight these top ranked guys. AJ's going to fight the other heavyweights from everywhere else. It sounds good in principle, but there has to be a long-term strategy to it. People talk about Turkey Al Sheikh having really good plans, and he seems to have a really good mindset in the way. But are we then going to see no more boxing in the UK or no more boxing in America? Is everything going to happen out in Saudi Arabia? I just think this creates more questions than it does answers, to be honest. The prospect is exciting, but the execution is going to be difficult.
Let's be honest, Harrison. The ones who are raving about the Saudi Arabia takeover are the ones who are invested by some way with the Saudi Arabians, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of mainstream journalists are keeping the powder dry a little bit, aren't they? Because they're not quite sure, if we're being brutally honest.
Very simply, lads. Very simple, it kills boxing.
That's a bit extreme, I think. I don't think.
No, it's not. It's not, Harrison, because if you look at if it is going to be like the UFC model, and you have a rankings table of the top 10 fighters or top 15 fighters or top 20 fighters in each division.
Mm-hmm.
There's like hundreds of fighters that are going to be left with nothing.
But then
you think about small all, and at the minute, although small all struggle, it's very difficult for fighters to get onto the current big promoters in the UK. The current 3 big promoters in the UK. It's difficult for small all fighters to get on them shows anyway, but they do. There is a glimmer. There is a chance. And the way that they work through that is by winning area titles, English titles, British titles. All of that will be gone, mate, because the British Board of Boxing the British Boxing Board of Control will no longer exist.
We won't need to.
Because they wouldn't need to. They wouldn't have the funding from the big fighters and the big promoters. So then they wouldn't be able to fund the smaller shows and the smaller belts. It would all implode and fold.
Yeah. Where I'd agree with you there is I worry it's going to damage Olympic systems and amateur white-collar systems, because if everything's happening in one country and under one marketplace, it's really difficult to see why a British athlete would want to try and go to the Olympics if they're not being guaranteed a contract under this Saudi whatever the belt of the league is going to be called. The only thing is where I disagree with it killing boxing is you talk there about there being like 100 fighters in the featherweight division or something like that. Like say that is the same already in the UFC, and it forces the best to fight the best, which is
I get that.
It makes really nice matchmaking across the board. Which if that side of things is done, this will be an exceptional model where you really have to fight your way to get to the number 1 ranking or to an interim or to a world title. Which I think that can work really nicely. And that's why it wouldn't damage the sport of boxing. But see all of these new organizations we've seen over the last year or two, like Overtime, what's the one up at Rotherham? I've forgotten the lad's name. You've been to a couple shows.
GBM.
GBM, that's the lads. Like those type of promotion companies that have come out in the last year or two, we wouldn't see any more of them again. And I think that would be a real loss to boxing, to be honest. I think that the GBM one especially has been a fantastic story to see that rise where they've got themselves right into the pinnacle. They've really interfered with the market. It's a shame we won't see more of that.
One thing that would really interest me if it was to take shape is values of purses. Because why would they need to throw so many millions at purse bids? Because in effect, they're the only ones bidding. So it could be detrimental to boxers' purses as well.
Yeah,
it will definitely be. I mean, look, everyone complains. All the UFC fighters complain they don't get paid enough.
Yeah, that's why half of them come to boxing after they retire from
the
UFC.
Yeah, that's right. Or they go and fight Jake Paul.
Yeah, fair enough.
Orkan, what do you think of the possibility of there being a Turkey shape doing a boxing league?
I see it another other way than most of you. I know how the boxing is outside the big nations, and it's so hard for fighters from the eastern part of Europe and for Scandinavia, where I are. Denmark is okay, but not good. And Germany has gone down in level in the last 10 years. So I think that could be not be good at all for the smaller nations.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
So I see it from that point of view.
And I wonder where it would leave your Channel 5s of this world and people like that who are on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and the BBC, who have been really involved with boxing the last couple of years with the Scottish shows especially. It's a real shame. There just wouldn't be any of that. I'm sure the model would be sensational. You'd get every big fight for X quid a month on one streaming platform like DAZN, whoever it might be. There is good things, I think, that would come out of it. Convenience would be a massive part. But I do agree with some of Andy's parts about it wouldn't kill boxing, but it would put it in I think it would put it in a worse position initially than it would have better.
The only thing they would have to look at talent pipeline, wouldn't there? Because fighters get older, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you still need them big names coming through to build the narrative to get them into the big fights with it all behind the fighters. So there would have to be something. It couldn't just be a cliff edge.
I agree with that.
It'd all have to change, Carl. The structure of the systems, the way fighters come through, it all has to be different. And that obviously takes a long time. If this was ever to happen, I don't see it happening anytime soon. It might be 10 years down the line or something like that. It won't happen straight away because there'll be too much pushback.
Yeah, I think he's been thrown out for that purpose, Andy. I think Turki Al-Sheikh is very smart because he threw out questions about when British fight fans were unhappy that all the big fights were going to Saudi. All of a sudden, we get cards in America and in the UK. And I think this is of a similar ilk. I think he's thrown this out just to gauge public opinion and then to look at it. I genuinely do.
I think that's a really good point, actually, as well. It's just that if this happens, it can't all just happen in one country. We can't have every single fight in Saudi Arabia. Like the UFC learned that a long time ago. They were only fighting in specific cities like New York, Vegas, LA. They had their apex in Vegas, of course. And then they were forced to expand because the product just got too big. This wouldn't be a product like the UFC because you've got to remember all of these big four promoters are already massive names globally. They're an institution in Great Britain and America. Matchroom is a name that has been going around for 60, 70 years with the snooker, the darts, the pool, whatever you may name it. So they don't have to start from the ground level upwards. They have to be putting international shows on in Australia, Europe, America from the get-go. It can't be Riyadh and Diriyah and Jeddah every single week. It can't be because you'd lose interest, surely.
Yeah.
Well, the fight fans would walk away from the sport and find something new, Harrison. Simple as that.
Yeah, definitely.
There is another way to look at it as well. We're constantly complaining about the lack of clarity on drug testing. We're always complaining about boxing rankings and the fact that we've got 4 belts and all of the rankings in those 4 belts are completely different. You know, you got someone sat at number 2 in one division. He's not even in the top 10 in the other.
Mm-hmm.
All of that would get cleared up. So, in my opinion, that would be a positive. We'd have one body to test for drugs. That would be very clear. Things like that would be of a benefit. Is where boxing's let itself down. The only reason we're having this conversation, the only reason Turki Al-Sheikh has got involved is because boxing is in a complete mess. And it's in a complete mess all by itself. The promoters are to blame for it. The broadcasters are to blame for it. The organisation, governing bodies are to blame for it. Boxing is where it is, and it's all its own fault.
And you could argue that's because the sport's too fragmented. I'll throw that one in there.
You're right. Yeah. Exactly that. These governing bodies need to wake up very quickly. They need to get around the table and they need to come up with some sort of a structure where it's a little bit more balanced. It's a little bit more, okay, we'll let your world champion fight our world champion. We'll make sure that the top 10 rankings are similar. So we've got the right people in the right positions. And there's not somebody that's ranked at number 2 in the IBF that nobody's ever heard of. You know, a European fight that no one's ever heard of. That's what's happening at the minute. Because they're all out to gain for themselves. They're all out to make money for themselves. They're not interested in what IBF are not interested in what the WBC are doing. They couldn't care, and that's where it all falls down.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they all come together and get around the table and come to some sort of an agreement with with drug testing, well, probably not, Cole. But if it doesn't happen, then Turki Al-Sheik's gonna have a field day, and he'll get to take over boxing whenever he wants to, won't he?
Another really important point there, like you said, with the drug testing, which I'm absolutely in agreement with, and I'm sure you will be with this point. If we were fighting under one body, the way the UFC is, you're just the UFC champion. That's it. We currently have 4 official and 1 unofficial world recognized sanctioning bodies in the sport of boxing. If we're under this one single banner, there's no need for that, because there isn't going to be 4 world champions. There's going to be 1 world champion at each weight across the 16 weight classes. But devil's advocate to that as well, you have to turn around to the BA, the BC, the BO, and the IBF and go, we don't need you anymore because we're just going to do our own thing. And they're too institutional a body within boxing where they just won't allow that. I don't think.
Are there?
Yeah, I think so. The sanctioning bodies play a much bigger part.
Money can do a lot of things, can't it? Money can do a lot of things. Let me throw another scenario then. What about if the decision's taken out of their hands and fighters just don't?
Can you force that? No, I agree. It's just, can you force all of the fighters to take away their mandatories and their positions with all these bodies?
How many green notes on the table to come to this new boxing league?
But you wouldn't.
The thing is, there's lots and lots and lots of moving parts here, and they all have to agree to the same thing. I can't see that happening anytime soon. If boxing carries on deteriorating the way it has done for the last 20 years, and it does it as rapidly as it has done for the last 20 years, in 10 years' time, boxing may be in a really, really bad position where apart from the very top end, Cole. The very, very top end that at the minute is happening in Saudi, the rest of boxing might be in a position where it needs it. It needs this to happen.
I'll draw parallels with when darts split. Now, I know it's not a different beast completely, but everyone was saying at that stage, nobody will join the PDC. Nobody will join. Then slowly but surely, the prize money was going up and up and up. And a couple of players went, and a few more went, and before you know it, they'd all gone because the terms and conditions were so good at PDC. That was a place to be. And I think Turki Al-Sheikh can create that same atmosphere and same product quite easily in boxing.
Yeah, the problem with that though, Carl, is there was only the one really big organisation, the BDO, and there's not only one organisation, is there? There's four world organisations plus 5 or 6 promoters.
I don't think it matters. I think it's a scenario. Build it and they will come. I think
I'm not convinced.
If you make it enticing enough for the fighters, they'll go.
What you might get, Cole. Sorry, mate. Sorry, Harris. What you might get is the very top end names, like the world champions, current world champions. You might entice them to go to this governing body, and then people may slowly start to trickle over, but that won't happen overnight. And there's always going to. The thing is the governing bodies are not just going to roll over. I
don't see what teeth they have. I just don't see what teeth the governing bodies have got. If Turki Al-Sheikh, he can even create his own belts, for crying out loud. It's what he's doing now. So
I know, but
what teeth have the governing bodies got?
Well, so I don't know. It's about history, isn't it? It's about what boxing stands for, with the likes of the WBA and the WBC as the main two.
Yeah,
they've been around for well over 100 years.
Yeah.
And
it's funny what a green note does.
No, yeah, I know what you're saying, mate, but. Yeah, you're getting big fights, but at the minute, it's not overtaking boxing.
I don't think
you're still getting massive. You're still getting massive fights happening in the States. I think
Turki could well go. Okay, then I'll buy the WBC. Then
you can't buy a sanctioning body.
He can do anything he wants.
but it's not. It's not straightforward. It's not a case of just going, here's $1 billion now, fuck off. Like
we wouldn't have thought getting all promoters around that getting Earnham Warren was straightforward. We'd made that quite simple by showing a pound note.
That is a very good point.
I just don't think there's anything he's not willing to do. To be honest with you, I don't think anything's off the table.
You are right. Just before you close this bit off, you made the example there about the darts, which was really good, but a bit more of a relevant one to just kind of play on the other side of that was Live Golf in the last couple of years. Why hasn't that attracted everybody from the PGA to go over and play with Live? Because that's obviously a Saudi company.
Tradition. Harrison, tradition.
I'm not a big golf fan, but haven't they amalgamated now?
Yeah, the Live eventually folded and just let all the players go back to play in the PGA because the PGA were threatening to put them all out of the Masters and the 3 majors as well. So eventually Saudi did just give in, but that was a whole funny. That's a completely different story to boxing, though.
How many times do we hear that boxing's a wild, wild west and anything goes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what golf felt like in the couple of months when the snap away happened.
The thing is, what you might find happening is if he pushes it too hard, too fast, boxing might just close ranks.
No.
Boxing might close ranks, and you might get governing bodies putting pressure on promoters, TV broadcasters putting pressure on promoters because the TV broadcasters will all lose out. So you might see them putting pressure on promoters. The promoters will then have to put pressure on the fighters. The fighters will then have a choice to make.
Yeah.
Do they want to go with this new money that it's still in the infancy? By the way, guys, do they want to go to this new money with the infancy, or do they want to stay with what they know? It could very easily happen, Carl, where they could all just close ranks on Saudi if he pushes it too much.
Yeah, I don't see it.
It can happen, Andy. It's a really good point. The TV broadcast, and especially, is the big point because obviously the entire of the UFC is broadcast by ESPN. And if you want to outsource it, then people have to buy the licensing for it. If you create this league for boxing, let's just assume it's going to be on DAZN, then they're going to have to license it out to every big broadcaster. So if Sky want to show a big fight, they're going to have to pay significantly more money than they would to just put the fight on themselves. So
and they're not going to do it.
Yeah, it will close off a lot of different broadcasting perspectives.
I think that
sorry, Orkan, go on.
With the golf with Live, I think this is totally different.
It could be.
The golf industry was so much against the Live Golf and Saudi that the boxing hasn't been at all. So that's my view on this with the Saudi boxing and Live Golf and Saudi from the Deeper World Tour and the PGA Tour against Live. So most people in boxing love the Saudi now, but the golf doesn't do it.
Yeah, fair.
What's going to be interesting is the show in September. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at Wembley and how it's all put together, how it's promoted, because that's the first real big one, isn't it, outside of the Kingdom?
Yeah, and Crawford as well.
So that might be a big telling point.
Yeah. Because you worry that they're going to be playing the Saudi anthem at Wembley at 9:00 when His Majesty arrives.
Yeah, they will. Of course, it will be.
Yeah, because obviously if it's their show, they decide how things are dictated and ran, which, as they should, because it's their money. What kind of reception is that going to get in North London?
Well,
I don't know.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. I think, Carl, we might have done this one to a bit of a death.
Well, I don't think it's the last time we'll visit this one either, to be honest.
No, I'm sure it's not, mate. I'm sure it's not. Well, what can we say about David Avanesyan's cojones? This guy will step in the ring with anybody at any notice. He took on the man that everyone thought was unbeatable. Everyone thought that was untouchable. Nobody wanted to go near, and by all accounts, the fight against Terence Crawford got made within 3 days. From what I understand,
and I think the
from the
in 2 days as well, to be honest, but that's another story.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a different story. From what I understand, from the minute David Avanesyan's team, Neil Marsh, was asked about the fight, from that minute, it took 36 hours for the deal to be completed. So all of this about big fights can't happen, big fighters can't, big fight, it takes ages to make a big fight, and you got this and you got that and you got the other. If the fighters want it, fights get made quick. So much respect to David Avanesyan and Neil Marsh, Carl Greaves for taking on, let's have it right, the king in waiting in the welterweight division. Everyone expects Boots Ennis to go on and be the king and reign for many, many years to come. And so to take a fight in 4 weeks, whether you're fit or not, against such a big fighter, so much credit to the boys. So, Harrison, what was your first reaction when you heard, firstly, that Boots Ennis' original opponent fell out, and then the fact that David Avanesyan got the pick?
Well, I suppose a bit disappointing. Then we didn't really know. I feel like British fight fans especially know far more about David Avanesyan than we do about Cody Crawley at the elite level anyway. So it wasn't too much of a. They were always going to just sort of make the sin as like a Jerron Ennis homecoming, that it didn't really matter who he fought. He needs to look impressive in. My thoughts when Avanesyan stepped in was he must get a kick out of like being punched in the head or something. Because to do it against Crawford on 3 days' notice was fine, but then you give yourself a month against Jerron Ennis, and you still couldn't get your head battered in. And fair play to him. It's great to see these type of fights being made, because we didn't want to see Ennis get in there with just someone who's going to blast out and around. I know Crawford did, but you'd like to think Ennis is going to have a bit of a test here on his hands, because Avanesyan's a good operator. He made a mockery of so many different British fighters over that sort of period where he was dominating them all, and he's a really solid operator. But it's a shame Daz isn't here, because I know how much he rates him. Jerron Ennis for me is like not far in those pound for pound lists now. There's something about him that just you sit back and watch. And I think that this whole Matchroom Ennis thing is going to just work to a T. He screams Saudi Arabia to me. I think he'll be headlining a card there in the next 12 months once he gets this Philly homecoming out of the way. But Jerron, good luck to David Avanesyan, and it's good to see him in there. But Jerron Ennis is going to put a show on Saturday night, I think. Oh, sorry, in 4 weeks' time.
What you will get for absolute certain is David Avanesyan having a go.
He will have a go. There's no better words to use there than he will have a go. Whether he gets blasted out in 2 minutes because he's too aggressive and his chin's up against Boots doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's just good that he's going to go in there and give Ennis a fight in what's going to be quite a cacophonic surrounding as well. It's going to be absolutely bouncing, I'd say, in Philadelphia for that one.
Carl, you can argue that David Avanesyan is Boots Ennis' toughest opponent today.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what you said around props to Neil Marsh, friend of the show, Carl Greaves, friend of the show, and David Avanesyan, who also friend of the show, who we've interviewed. He's got a balls on him, hasn't he? To jump in with him in his own backyard, and I think he'll have more. I think to say he's going to have a go is a little bit disrespectful. I get the sentiment, but I think he'll ask some questions about Boots Ennis.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean it the way it come across.
Yeah, so I think he's going to give him a bit of a test. I agree, Boots Ennis will probably win the fight a bit like Crawford did, but he even asked Crawford a few questions in that fight for how long it lasted. Tried to put it on him. One thing you can be guaranteed is that he's going to put it on him. He's going to put it on him because he's only got one way of fighting, with all due respect, Avanesyan, and that's come forward.
Yeah.
Boots Ennis is better hope that he don't get a bit of success and Ava gets a bit of confidence, because it could be a long night for Boots Ennis if he does get a bit of success. But I don't think it's any harm for Avanesyan. I think his stock rises as long as he gives a good account of himself. Now, that might mean something different to all four of us. but can't take it away that he's had the bottle on 4 weeks' notice. A lot of fighters would have turned that fight down with only 4 weeks' notice. He's gum shielding bag, off he goes. Difficult one because I believe he deserves a big fight in the UK on the back of this, because he's travelled 2 times now for arguably his biggest fights in the champion's back garden. So I believe he deserves a big fight, even if it's on an undercard somewhere. It's a great division that he's in. So fingers crossed that he gets a bit of profile behind him. Say he's the boogeyman of the division might be a bit strong, but let's have it right. Not many people want to jump in with him in that division. So fingers crossed he gets a big fight, and I hope he's getting the big payday for this fight that he deserves for going over and doing it.
Håkan, what's your thoughts, mate?
I love this fight. To get Avanesyan to step in instead of Cody Crowley, I think for Avanesyan, for me, he has been, after the Crawford fight, he has fought once, but he hadn't get the big fights after that fight, after the Crawford one. So with if he will have a good fight against Boots, he could get on a bigger fight after that one. So I think for Avanesyan, this fight is very important for his future.
Well, so David Avanesyan, is that it? Sorry, mate. Go on, carry on.
I understand why they stepped in with 4 weeks' notice.
Yeah, a lot of people are giving Avanesyan's camp a lot of grief when he fought in Birmingham last time out. But Neil Marsh was very quick to say it was a takeover fight, and they had some big plans in the making. So again, another nod to Neil Marsh, a quiet man of boxing who just gets on with his business and does the best for his fighters. Yeah,
I'll say this about Neil Marsh. A lot of people that don't like him because of what he says, and don't like him because he puts it on people's toes, they call him a gobshite. Well, he may say what he thinks, and it may not go down very well with certain people, but he gets the job done. How many fighters, Carl? We all know who I'm going to be talking about here, are calling out big names and doing nothing about it, and they've been doing it for years. I want him. I'm going to batter him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Talking's cheap. You don't hear David Avanesyan calling anybody out. But when it comes down to it, he gets a phone call from his manager. Boots Ennis's fighters fell through. You got 4 weeks. You want it? And I'm sure. I haven't had a conversation with anyone, but I'm sure it took David Avanesyan about 3 seconds to say yeah, because that's the type of man he is. So, David Avanesyan is a very aggressive, come-forward pressure fighter. No, there's no 2 ways about it. He will ask Boots Ennis questions. Questions that he probably hasn't had to answer very often in his pro career so far. Now, we all think Boots Ennis is outstanding. He looks outstanding. And you're probably going to get a lot of answers as to just how good he is and where he's currently at in this fight. But props again to Team David Avanesyan for taking this fight at the notes they've took it at, because there's not many people that are at the level that Avanesyan's at that would have gone, yeah, okay, I'll take that fight 4 weeks in the guy's own back garden.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Can you, Harrison? I mean, you answer it, Harrison. David Avanesyan, I would say, is world class, fringe world class. He's beat world class fighters. He's lost to arguably pound for pound the best fighter in boxing right now in Crawford, and he's going in against the soon to be pound for pound king in Boots Ennis. Name me another fighter at the level that Avanesyan's at that would have took this fight at 4 weeks' notice.
Well, there's two questions you're answering me there. Like, I can't speak for like I don't know, like a Brian Norman or a Mario Barrios or someone at that level. Like, I can't suggest that they would do it in 4 weeks. I think it's impressive that he has decided to take this fight on 4 weeks' notice, and it's good to see there's not enough characters like him in boxing that do that, which is at this level as well, where he knows even if he wins 9 rounds, he's probably still going to lose or get robbed of a decision over in Philadelphia anyways. So that side of things, yeah, fair enough. He's going there. He's probably going to have to knock Duran out, and he's probably going to be about 100 to 1 to do that, whatever. Is he world class? I don't know. I feel like world class might just be pushing the barriers a little bit. I only say that because if you look at the rest of the welterweight division at the minute, the names that you've got there, I think it's a really stacked division. That there's people that aren't even going to get world opportunities. You know, people would say even like the likes of a Conor Benn are probably better than Avanesyan. I think that would be.
Behave yourself. Behave yourself.
I said people. I didn't say I'd say. I'm just saying, keep me journalist head on
okay.
Here. That's the type of fight that I would like to make in.
No, I'd throw him in with Harrison. I'd throw him in with McKinson.
Michael McKinson, if he behaves himself, yeah, he's a really good fighter. I think he's just due to be back out now soon enough. Actually,
that would be a good fight.
Yeah, that would be a nice fight. There's plenty of good fights that you can make actually in the UK, and I think that Avanesyan's got himself a little bit of a following over here. He's headlined BT shows before. He's a big enough name in the UK, but whether he's world class or not, I don't know. If he puts a really good performance in against Ennis, like he loses a close decision or he looks decent, maybe I'd be inclined to say he's at that world class level. But for me, he's just short of it at the minute.
Okay. So, prediction, Harrison.
Boots stops him. But I know that's sorry because I know you're all good mates with his managers and all that. And I do really wish him the best of luck, like I do any fighter. But I think Duran Ennis is something really, really special. I'm talking for quite a few people there. I just think with the whole homecoming, new promotional banner, everything just is set to work out for him. Avanesyan's only had 4 weeks to prepare for him. Boots has been, in this camp for a long time. So I think the Boots will stop him. But it'll go way longer than the Crawford fight did. That was a bit of a freak show. I think this will go 5 or 6 rounds at least, and then Duran Ennis will just wear him down and be a bit too good for him, I think.
You don't need to apologise for your opinion, mate.
Well, just because I know you're good mates with his managers and stuff like that, and like you said, there isn't. Like him.
We are, but that being said, I know Cole's going to give his straight opinion here, and so will I. So I'll come to you first, Cole.
Yeah, I think David Avanesyan's going to give a good account of himself here. But I do think Boots Ennis will beat David Avanesyan. I think he's going to stop David Avanesyan, but I do think he's going to get 9 rounds out of it. So Boots Ennis to stop David Avanesyan, unfortunately, with the heavy heart in round 9.
Harrison? I've done it again. Hawkeye?
I think Avanesyan could do pretty good in the early rounds, so I think it will be a couple of rounds to round 5, round 6 when Boots taken over, and maybe stop it round 7, 8.
Everything is obviously balanced in Boots' favour here. Homecoming, all the crowd, 4 weeks' notice, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, you've got who we all think is elite, who we all think is going to be pound for pound in the welterweight division for many years to come, against someone that I believe is world level. David Avanesyan will definitely ask Boots Ennis a lot of questions in this fight, but again, like Carl, I can see Boots Ennis winning the fight, probably by late stoppage.
At least you were honest.
Well, at the end of the day, mate, that's what the thing is, right? The thing is, that's what we are on this show, and if you can't be honest, if you can't be straight when you need to be, what's the point in having a channel like this?
Yeah.
Listen, Harrison, we'll probably be interviewing the guy on tomorrow night because we're at a Carl Greaves show in Leicester, and no doubt David Avanesyan may be there.
Yeah.
So, but boxing's about opinions, right? So,
that's why it's so good, I think, boxing.
Yeah, we're not like
Carl.
We're not like other channels where we fold and change our minds every 5 minutes, but I won't name them.
Yeah. Let's not go there, mate. One more topic, Carl. I don't know if you've got it on the list, but we need to talk about GBM.
Hold on a minute. Just before you move on from David Avanesyan. So, as you know, we're friends of Neil Marcy's friend of the show. I have a signed David Avanesyan poster. So if you're watching this live or watching it on after the show, post your comments below regarding predictions of what round what round and who wins a fight, and I will post this out to the one who's right.
Can I answer?
So yeah, of course you can, mate. So just to clarify, Carl, comments in the sidebar, comments in the who wins what round and what round.
First one, well, I'll pick one at random, and then I'll reach out to them, get the address, and I'll put this in the post. Legitimate from Neil Marsh, signed David Avanesyan poster. And Harrison, you can't take part, sorry. Can you imagine if you won? Can you imagine the scandal?
Well, we'll get that out on the socials as well, Carl, and get all them involved.
So I've got no more banners, Ander. So let's just go on to any other business.
Okay, so obviously there's been a big announcement from GBM. There were my notes. There's been a big announcement from GBM Boxing. Myself and Carl have been going along to GBM shows for quite some time, pretty much since they started out. Shows up in Rotherham, shows up in Sheffield, and they've been building momentum, building profile, improving production, improving the level of fighter and the name of fighter that they're getting on the shows. And now they've had this massive announcement that they've linked up with DAZN. They had a link up with TalkSport as well, and now they've got this link up with DAZN. This, in my opinion, I'll come to you first, Harrison, because it's going to be a neutral opinion from you. This, in my opinion, puts GBM right up there in the big leagues. The likes of Boxxer seriously need to be worried now.
Bang on. It's exactly the same as when Boxxer moved from ITV to Sky. It is exactly what it feels like. The move these days to go from a TalkSport YouTube channel over to DAZN, who are hosting to over 1 billion people now across the world, which is incredible. It's a huge move for them, and I think quite a deserved one. I've watched a lot of the shows online. I've not had the privilege of being at one yet, but seeing the crowds he's had up north, and then that show in London this is such a deserved move in my opinion. And DAZN are obviously trying to accumulate as many sort of these small haul Friday night, Saturday night type shows as they can, which is really good for profile building because it's great for them for highlights and then using clips and having the fighters on one package, which is what a lot of fight fans want. It helps justify the £20-25 a month as well when you've got so many different shows and options. So I think this is a great move, and I'm really excited to see how it works with DAZN, because you're going to see an increase in production value, everything that GBM needs. They've got the fights. The fights have actually been properly good. They're entertaining cards to watch, thoroughly entertaining, high competitive.
Back in 1 minute.
It's just been
don't rush.
It's just been a really, really good production level, I think, for GBM for the last year or two. So good luck to them. Really mean it. It's good to see them over on DAZN. It makes sense, I think, that deal.
Yeah, Orkan, obviously you've been to some GBM shows. Obviously, give us your thoughts about the production and the link in with DAZN.
First, I went to Sheffield October time for Wood Warrington last year, and I hadn't watched a a single minute of a GBM show before that. But when it was a Friday show in Sheffield the day before, I bought tickets from Nicola Hopwell and attended. The main event was cancelled last minute, and even though the main event was cancelled so last minute, I was over the moon of the show. This is the best show I ever been to, what I expected before. Yeah. And after that, I decided to come to the next GBM show, and I did that the February show when we catch up in Sheffield.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that GBM is linked with DAZN to see a promotion company take these steps forward, and I think they could surpass Wasserman Boxing pretty quick if it go down well.
Yeah, I think they've got Wasserman in the sights, and they've also got Boxer in the sights as well. I mean, I've been to the majority of GBM shows. Yeah, I've got better over the course of time as the budget grows, and obviously they've linked in with Talk Sport Boxing. The credibility has grown when you think they've got Spencer Oliver, Adam Smith now on board. That's surely gone a long way to them securing the DAZN deal, I would suggest.
Or without that.
The next show is, I believe, the 28th or the 29th of June in Coventry at the Sky Dome. The first one that's going to be on the DAZN platform. I'll be there in person. So Yuri Fiori's on the card. He's appeared on the card before. So I'd expect with the DAZN money now in the coffers, I would expect more and more fighters to gravitate to GBM, just like they have done Wasserman with the Channel 5 platform. You know, and it does lend itself to what we're talking about with the Saudi Arabia situation, where, you know, not everyone's going to get on DAZN, be TNT or Sky. You know, there's got to be some kind of outlet for that tier of boxer underneath who's just trying to rebuild, the Lyndon Arthurs of this world. Can work. Josh Keller, Channel 5, now he all of a sudden is back on DAZN, number one, challenging in I believe it's a WBO. So there is a place for this platform. I think Izzy Asif's got bigger fish to fry than that. I think he's seriously looking at getting to the top, the higher echelons of the sport.
Yeah.
Rumoured to have connections with Saudi Arabia already in place. Rumours that's where the funding's coming from for GBM. So who's to say where they're going to be in 12, 24 months' time?
See, it seems a really good lad, that Izzy Asif. I've not had the pleasure of having a chat with him or anything.
Yeah. He's interesting. He's a colourful character and interesting. Yeah. He's a very nice guy.
It's exactly what you really want from someone at the top end of a promotion company, because he seems to just really enjoy what he's doing. He's like, you always see the clips, they always pan the cameras on Talk Sport to him, and he's always just sat there smiling. And I think it's just nice having characters.
And he's very complimentary of his team as well, isn't he? He's very quick to give credit to the back team. You know, he states that he's a front person, but there's a lot of work happening behind him.
Yeah,
I'd like to say the same about Last Bell, but and his laser. I think he's a well-oiled machine. I think Izzy needs a lot of credit, and he likes a bit of banter as well, which goes a long way, don't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what's really impressive, Carl? Is the amount they've learned in such a short space of time.
Yeah, not perfect, is it? Let's be honest, not perfect. But
what it is doing is it's improving every single time.
Yeah.
Show on show on show on show, it improves all the time. And it's a really good production, mate. Really, really good, Harrison. I suggest the next time there's one within your vicinity, mate, that you get down.
Yeah,
you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at how slick the production is.
Mm-hmm.
And like Carl said, they've got some big names on board now. Quite clearly, the introduction of Adam Smith has made a big difference.
Massive.
When it comes to being able to get things like this DAZN deal. I'm sure it's not just the fact that Adam Smith's come on board, but it will certainly help.
Check out the interview on the channel. Cracking interview, Adam Smith one, if I may say so myself.
Is it like, as Carl's just referred to, is he said on an interview that we did with him at the end of the last show, he's targeting to be the best. He wants to be the best promoter in the world.
Yeah.
Now, people will laugh at that, maybe, because he's only been a promoter for a couple of years. People might laugh at that and go, "What, you know?" But he believes it.
Yeah.
He believes he's capable of being the best promoter in the world.
I believe he is as well. Just keep them accreditation tickets coming out.
They're very loyal to people that have been there since day one. Very respectful to everybody that goes along that does their bit. Very respectful to us as a channel. Always thanking us for turning up at the shows. Always thanking us for going down to pressers and weigh-ins and all of that, which you don't often get. You know, because we're at the end of the day, let's have it right. We're a small cog when it comes down to media. You know, we're growing as a channel, but we're a small cog, and often you don't get thought about. You get forgotten. You're just just get yourselves over there, lads. You know, that don't happen at GBM. You get treated the same as everybody else. So many thanks to them for that. Many thanks to them for always having us back. But yeah, watch this space, because I expect, if this is what they've done in a couple of years, imagine what they're going to do in another couple.
Yeah, best of luck to them.
Yeah, and for me, when I like that GBM now have pressers open for public.
I don't like that. I don't believe the public should be invited to press conferences. It should be media.
Yeah, I can take them. When I was in Sheffield last year, when it was media only, Izzy invited me personally to the presser.
Yeah, I'll have to have a word next time I see him.
Anything else, guys? Anything else you want to bring up, Håkan?
Yeah, there are very good shows, and we haven't talked about Subriel Matias' homecoming in Puerto Rico this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that card too. And
are you staying awake for that, Håkan? Are you doing it all nighter?
Yeah, I will switch from Las Vegas card to the Puerto Rico one on the early hours on Sunday.
The Benavidez fight, does it interest me? I think that'll be a good fight.
That's a great fight.
Love that fight.
Yeah,
so good. It's a shame. Alexander Vodchik, the last time he fought, he was on like the YouTube prelims as well for the last.
Yeah. Well, under the radar, isn't it, Harrison, in the UK, that fight?
Very quiet. The problem has always been with PBC shows in the UK. You don't know where to watch them.
Yeah.
Because we had a long time deal where ITV were there, and then that collapsed overnight, and it just vanished. Triller were taking Fight TV. They were taking the odd one, but then there was no consistency or anything. Then you were watching a world feed, which is so boring. And YouTube had a couple of shows, but then they fell off, and it's been such a muddled mess because there hasn't been a solid one.
This show is the first PBC on Prime in the UK.
Yeah. And with a bit of hope now, all of the PBC shows, you can just watch them on Prime. I don't care if they're all pay-per-views. At least I can just go and just buy a show and just watch it. I don't know why it has to be so hard to buy. They want my money. Why make it so hard? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, Benavidez, can't wait to see him blast Vodchik out.
I will order pay-per-view from Triller because PBC on Prime isn't available in my region. Yeah. But I think I have ordered pay-per-view for 4 or 5 PBC card from Triller, and it's I think the Thriller has the commentary, the live commentary from PBC Prime, so that's more or less the same coverage that it's on PBC Prime. So I think it's good.
It's good that they've got that stage, because I remember they used to just use the world feed, and I swear to you, it's hard enough staying up at 3 a.m. as it is. But when you're just staring at like a blank screen with no graphics for 30 minutes to fight, it's just dreadfully boring, isn't it?
It's a dreadful experience, isn't it? Dreadful.
We've all been there. Well, will I be there on Saturday night again? Yes, I will.
Okay.
Harrison, anything to add?
No, just Benavidez. Can't wait to see if just blow Kvacic up. If I don't see Benavidez and with Canelo in the next 6 months, I'm going to go feral, because it's just I've grown impatient now. And they're not.
It's not going to happen, mate.
Not for me.
Crap. Why? All these years of build up and like hostility between the two of them, and they're never going to fight. It's like
I don't understand it.
Like that'll never happen now, obviously, because the way Wilder is. So there's so many lost fights over the years, and I feel like Canelo Benavidez for me is like number one.
But it won't happen.
It makes you.
It won't happen moving forward, I was thinking, because we've got the Saudis now, so it's all going to happen.
No,
it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if there's something else going on in the background that no one knows about. Because of all the fights to make, the Munguia fight, I understand that, but the Benavidez fight, of all the fights to make, it's got to be the biggest fight for Canelo. It's got to be the biggest fight for the Mexican audience. I don't get it.
That would be in the top 5 pay-per-views of all time in the States. That would break Mayweather.
You think so, wouldn't you?
Break into Mayweather's mold of records. That is a monster fight. I can honestly, other than probably AJ Fury, and there's a couple of people I'd like to see Tank in with, and maybe Crawford Spence too. I honestly think Canelo Benavidez is just the fight in boxing.
Well, you need to write a letter to Turkey then, don't you? Write a letter.
Just ask him, and then it'll be made.
I'm sure he knows who you are, Harrison. You know, if Harrison asks, things happen.
I'm one of the few people he doesn't follow on boxing Twitter. He mustn't like me. It's just fair enough.
Okay, time to bring the show to an end on that bombshell, Harrison. So, Orkan, thank you very much, young man, for joining the show. Much appreciated. Harrison, thank you very much. And your Wi-Fi held out, which is a bonus.
I know it is.
Same time next week, 7 p.m, guys. Remember to post your predictions below regarding the Avanesyan fight. This has been Last Bell Boxing, sponsored by LW Liftings and SC Travel. We'll see you next week.